Okay, so why don't we maybe hit a few balls or
Sure.
that sort of thing. Let people see your swing and just kind of talk us through it a little bit.
All right. Well, like I was saying, at address, at setup, I'm working on creating as much width and space here as possible to give the club just room to move.
Right. One of the things I don't notice is that you've got a really wide stance. Like that looks about shoulder width or so. Manageable.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't see you, because you're a long driver, you got this huge stance on there or anything like that.
Yeah, for me, I just found, I've experimented with different stance widths, and for me, going with the wider stance, I just felt like I had no weight transfer,
Right.
and pretty much zero speed.
That's one of the big things I try to tell people. That wider stance is definitely going to hamper your ability to use this, as opposed to the advantage of being not narrow, but just
right
within reason.
Well, and like you were mentioning, we're working in a circular motion here, not a lateral motion.
Exactly.
If you're working in a lateral motion, then you want to get that stance nice and wide and be able to move side to side or front to back. But from a narrow position, it works better from a turning standpoint. At least that's what I found.
Well,
for me.
something that turns as circular as possible is going to turn faster than something that's moving sideways and circular.
Right.
So, okay, so let's keep taking a look at this for a second. What pace do you think you were at there? Like, as far as your, how hard did you feel like you went at that?
I'm only swinging about 80% right there. It's more of a golf course swing.
Right. And that's another thing that people tend to do is they tend to, go all out on every single shot they hit.
Yeah.
Maybe they're trying to impress their friends, or they just want that one drive that goes 300 yards, or what they think is 300 yards.
Well, and they'll get it. The only problem is that it might be 150 that way and 150 that way.
Yeah, exactly. Or they do it once in a round, and the other drives for that day are just everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So even you just said that you swing it like 80%.
Yeah. I can certainly turn it up from there.
Well, I'm sure if you're in the long drive competition, you're going 100%.
Oh,
Other
yeah.
than that, if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
playing around a golf, you're going to keep it within reason. Right?
Yeah, I'm trying to hit the fairway.
Exactly.
In long drive competition, we get 5 mulligans per round. We've got 6 balls sitting there, and competition is so stiff and so good now that you have to be able to hit the ball really, really good each round.
Exactly.
And
that's kind of what we were working on.
Yeah.
Trying to get that dialed in.
Exactly. Because when I'm hitting it straighter, then I don't have to worry about like, oh gosh, I got to get one of my first 2 or 3 out there in the grid, and then go for it from there.
It's going to give you confidence.
Exactly. This year I had a lot of confidence at the World Championships, and I got in my own way in my last couple rounds, but that was a mental thing. That wasn't a physical thing.
Right.
And but my first 4 rounds of competition, I won the group each round.
Absolutely.
And I did it within my first 3 balls.
Yeah.
Each time.
Perfect.
So my first 3 rounds, my last ball was my biggest out of all 6, but I had already qualified to get to the next round through one of my first 3.
Right.
So I was able to just go ahead and let it rip from there.
Absolutely. Well, I've said for years that confidence breeds distance.
Absolutely.
If you keep hitting fairway after fairway after fairway, you could probably go a little harder at it, knowing full well that it's not going to go off the planet here.
Yeah.
Right. But if you just hit it everywhere, like you're going to have zero confidence. So how could you possibly keep hitting fairway? Like it's just not going to work.
Absolutely.
So if you just dial it down a little bit, you're going to get a little bit more control. You're going to stay a lot looser.
Yeah. And find your tempo. Some people have a much slower tempo. Some people have a little faster tempo.
Right.
When I think of guys with faster tempos, I think of like Greg Norman,
right.
Nick Price.
Right.
Those guys had some pretty quick tempos, but it worked for them.
Right. One of the things I was going to ask you is, how would you compare to a guy like Tiger Woods as far as distance is concerned? And let's talk swing speed and that sort of thing.
Distance-wise, as it relates to Tiger personally, with swing speed, for instance, Tiger usually tops out kind of around the 125, 127 range.
Yeah.
And that again is on tour,
Sure.
and so he's still trying to hit the fairway. But that's when he's ripping at it.
Yeah.
I'm sure if he trained for it, he could go a little faster, but my swing speeds when I'm on the golf course, swinging that 80-85% number, like I was saying, I'm right around 145.
Right.
So we're talking, roughly 20 miles an hour difference just in club head speed, and translating that into ball speed is probably somewhere in the 35 mile an hour range.
Yeah. Well, I'm at 117, and I don't hit it short.
No, you don't.
Every time we play, you're 100 yards by me. Pretty close, anyway.
Yeah, somewhere around there. But I mean, that's just my game.
That's right.
That's what I do. And you mentioned you're at 117. Tour average, guys, is 114.
Right.
And some of you swinging at 105 are going, oh my gosh, I'm so slow. I hit it nowhere. You're not that slow.
That's right.
You're not that slow.
Just a few little changes.
A few little changes, like getting your club fit properly to you, hitting the ball in the center of the face more often. You'll see a difference, I promise you. And keep in mind, too, that the majority of those tournaments that you're watching on TV, those fairways are running quite a bit. And at your local course, especially if it's like a municipal type course, you're not going to get that kind of roll. You'll be lucky to get 15, 20 yards of roll.
Right.
So keep that in mind too. Don't be so discouraged that you're X amount of yards behind Tiger or Phil or Bubba or whoever it may be.
Well, that's one of the things. They see that these tour players are hitting it, 320 or something, and they're like, oh man, I got to swing a lot harder. But really, a tour player on a lot of golf courses is getting 30 to 50 yards.
Yeah, they're getting quite a bit of roll, and their equipment is dialed in to the exact percentage that they need it.
Right.
A lot of you guys out there, especially weekend golfers, guys who play once, twice a month, you don't have your equipment dialed in for you. And you wouldn't believe how often I get asked that question.
Sure.
Oh, well, are your clubs built for you because you're tall? Well, yeah, but everybody has their clubs built for them. Everybody who's serious about the game should have their clubs built for them.
Right.
And I don't care if you play all the time or once or twice a month. If you want to play better golf, get your clubs built for you.
Absolutely. Okay, well, why don't we hit a couple more, and if there's anything else you can think of, just feel free to throw it out there.
Well, like we were saying, trying to keep it loose at address, build everything into the right side, and then let it unload as hard as possible through the ball, but stay balanced.
Yeah.
That was probably around the 90% range.
Okay. Now, one of the things we were working on, the big thing that I saw in your golf swing is you had this move where you were going sideways and kind of hanging back too much, and you tend to blow it out to the right a little bit or duck hook it to the left.
Sure.
Now, at some point, I remember back when I was a kid, I was told to shift to start my swing.
Yep.
Shift. And I tell you, I had the biggest slide in the world.
Oh, gosh. If you would have seen my slide in 0304, wow.
Yeah. So what are you thinking now? Like, I know we worked on, trying to turn better, straighten the left leg, like make it perfectly straight as opposed to being bowed here.
Yeah.
Like, are you sensing that now, like, versus before?
Oh, much more so. Yeah. I've had to train my mind to get wrapped around that when I'm at the top of my swing, to turn this rather than have everything kind of go at the same time.
Right.
And quite honestly, it's gotten me back to a point where I was when I was a little more raw and hadn't gone through too many teachers yet. I really had my lower body, even with the slide, I still had a big turn with my lower body before my hands and arms. And then going through different teachers, everybody has their different theories and everything.
Sure.
And I got to a point where I had everything kind of in sync. And I was hitting the ball a little straighter, but I was hitting it nowhere by comparison to what I had been. And, then moving on through the years and everything, I found different ways to get back to creating the distance. And that move that I had when you and I first started working together back in May, it was working for me to produce speed numbers, but my area of dispersion was
Oh yeah, you stay
amazing.
everywhere.
Yeah. And so we've worked really hard on that and fixed it not only through getting a better base and better turn through the ball, but by working on the grip as well. And one of the things that Paul and I talk about all the time when we're out here working together is the spin versus direction, meaning that your grip and your hand motion through the ball through impact is going to control the spin, and how much you're rotating your body is going to control the direction. So I know that if I'm hitting it left, then that means I've got a little too much arms in my swing and everything's a little too together, and I need to get my hips firing more. Whereas if I'm spinning it too much out to the right, not necessarily blocking it, but just hitting a fade, I need to work on releasing it a little bit more.
Right.
So, those are things that you and I have worked on for a while now, and those are my little triggers now that I go to, especially when I'm playing in tournaments or at a long drive tournament.
Right.
If I'm seeing one particular ball flight over the other, I know exactly what to do to be able to fix it within 2 to 3 swings.
That's perfect.